I'm here with Rafael from Compai Media. Thanks for taking the time to do this interview, Rafael.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, to start, can you tell me a little bit more about your business, what you do, and who you serve?
Yeah, so we're a digital marketing company. We serve plethora of services, but we've been focusing your help on chiropractors. We have a product called the Chiro Boost program that has been taken off, and we're, that's what we're focusing on these days.
Awesome. Yeah, so when we first started working together, Rafael, you'd already tried a couple project management systems. You'd used Teamwork. You were using Notion at the time. So what was it with those systems before, and kind of how were you managing your day-to-day with Notion before we worked together?
So Notion came about due to my operations manager's skill set. And I think at the level that we were at that point, it came in handy. But one of the challenges was that it wasn't really meant to be a project management tool. So to keep track of the workload for the team members and where were we in progression with a specific project or specific client was a little bit challenging. I mean, it was doable, but it would require all this development. So I got referred to you and we discussed the possibility of moving into ClickUp. You turned out to be an expert in ClickUp. And I was like, all right, this was meant to be. So we decided to move forward with building a ClickUp project management system with you.
So were you actually exploring ClickUp prior to talking to me? Were you looking at other project management systems besides Notion?
Yes and no. So yes, because I did know that Notion was not making the cut. And I had worked previously with Teamwork. I was dabbling with the idea of going back, but the reason why I didn't want to do that in ClickUp was kind of like at the top of the list was because I wanted to kind of revamp things for the team. The team had used Teamwork before, then we went into Notion and I kind of didn't want to make them go back. So I felt like with the help of an expert and, a fresh platform, people would be excited. And in fact, that was the case.
Awesome. So coming kind of from where we started, you got referred to me from a friend of yours, and you were kind of looking initially for automations. Was it when we first started talking about ClickUp, was it like, hey, we should do this first, or was it, I want to get these automations? But what was kind of your thinking when we first started talking together?
Yeah. So you're right. We started talking about automating some processes for us. And in the midst of it, we realized there were some bottlenecks or, just tracking the performance of the team workload. Like I just said, it was just not quite there. And in the midst of the automation projects, I decided to put a halt on that and build the automation on a solid foundation, such as ClickUp. And then that's kind of where we ended up going down that path, being that you knew your way around ClickUp. You're an expert provider for ClickUp. And so it just made sense to build on top of ClickUp instead of Notion, the automations, the original project that we had
Yeah,
connected.
yeah, no, for sure. Makes a lot of sense. I think there's this common misconception, especially with like AI and automation today, where everybody's like, I just want to AI my business, I want to automate everything, this and that. And it's very easy to get like the shiny object thing.
Totally.
But like you need to have that solid foundation, and you're 100% right about Notion. Like Notion can get people so far, but it's not really meant to be a project management system at the end of the day, like ClickUp.
No, there were some things that I missed about Notion and how easy it was to share like a note or whatnot. But I think that I just want to kind of give you a little bit of insights here for those who are seeing this. First of all, of course, I recommend you as a professional and service provider, but I think that it is important to keep in mind the concept of scalability and what it entails. So if you're really trying to grow, just go, like you said, for the shiny object. It's like, oh, it's AI, let's go ahead and do it. But like, think of it, unless you're in this just for the short term, but if you're in the long term, I think looking at really all the elements to have a scalable business is it's very important. I think that's something that you and I clicked on, was that we were on the same page in that sense. I have been, I've been doing the entrepreneurship game for I think 7 years now, and I've had my fair share of wins and I've also had my fair share of lessons. Just being at that stage where understanding that there are certain things that are required to be able to scale, like having solid foundations, especially on project management, was a key element. And the fact that you and I were on the same page and that just added more fire to the kindle of like, oh, I really enjoy working with Amir. We see things eye to eye, and it's been great so far, dude.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think I 100% agree where I saw working with your business right away. I was like, you're getting great results for your clients. It's not an offer problem. It's not a service problem. It was just more you felt chaotic, right? You didn't really know what was going on internally. You didn't have an easy way to look at Notion in the morning and see what's the team doing. So I guess kind of how were you feeling in that moment where you're like, hey, I want to scale this business, but now I need to actually figure out this foundation. Kind of what was going through your mind at that point?
I think just started dreading, going into Notion, or just dreaded the idea of like planning and like going into the strategy. Like it would take way more and it would take a lot of energy for me to see where where we want to go. I usually do this on the weekends. And it was just a bummer that I was already stressing about my planning before I even got to planning.
Yeah.
And obviously during the week, keeping track of things, I was also expanding my team. So I was in the midst also of training and delegating some of the key tasks like customer relationship and or client success. And I needed a way, like if I was going to give up those tasks, if I was not going to be doing that anymore, I needed a way to be able to help support my team first. And of course, understand where were we with our clients so that I could handle any fires that could come up if needed, right? Like the whole purpose is to hand off to my team. But I'm the type of person that likes to stay involved just in case if there was a bit of a fire to come up, then I would be in the know and be able to handle things. And just getting acquainted with what happened last week, getting acquainted with what was coming up this next week, and just the day to day was something that I was starting to dread. And that was a big red flag, or that was a big signal for me to like, okay, I think we reached the limit of the current systems that we have in place. And you came at the right time, man.
Yeah, so it really sounds like the lack of visibility was twofold. One was you're starting to dread it, but then the other piece was like you knew that you wanted to scale this business, the system wasn't working, and you weren't going to be able to delegate any work the way things were set up today. So I think that is something that a lot of people think is like, hey, we can just start delegating left and right. But if you don't know what people are doing, like you're about to create a disaster for yourself.
Funny enough, the person that referred me to you, I learned this lesson early on from him, and he was like, delegating is a skill, and it's a skill that you have to develop. It's one of the hardest things for me, like to do, because I started small and I would do everything myself, but then I realized, okay, well, I want to grow more. I'm gonna start adding team members, but it was always hard for me to let go of things. I will always be involved in every little thing, micromanaging, which was actually the biggest rock for growth. Like that was the biggest constraint for work for growth, because it's like, okay, well, if you're going to be doing everything, then you're not really going to be able to scale. So with your help, we were able now to have, we have a dashboard that allows us to see where's everybody at, what's behind. And quite honestly, I'm not the best at keeping the project management tool up to date. I get heat from my team members sometimes, but regardless of that, it's efficient. They know what they need to do. The operations managers, they know where they're at, and it just changed completely. I feel like we just opened a pressure valve, and all that pressure just kind of went off, and now we're back to operating at regular temperature and pressures, which means that we can continue to build.
Yeah, I think you touched on something there where you mentioned, maybe you're not the best at it, but your team is really benefiting from it. I think there's a good story here about your operations manager and how early on she was quite skeptical
She's
about,
very good.
very skeptical about ClickUp and, what I do and the things that it's just like, oh, is he gonna, ruin the way I work and the way the team works and this like that. I think there's a lot of skepticism that we had to overcome a little bit, but now it's awesome where after the project, I sent her a message and she's like, no, this is great. It's working
Yeah.
so well. So
But it just comes with the territory. Like, it is part of my job as the CEO. And this is something that I've been learning. It's to show them the vision. And I knew that we needed this tool. She was just afraid of the unknown.
Mhm.
He was under the impression that Notion could do everything that ClickUp could do. And yeah, it could get to that point, but it just requires so much development, which was way over her head.
Mhm.
That's why it's important, I think, to build systems and have a solid project management foundation where you can track where people are at, because sometimes they just don't see it. They're so caught up on their day to day that they don't see what the next step for growth is. And I had that vision. I literally had to sell her on the moving to ClickUp. She was so against it. And I had to basically took a bet, or took a chance. It was like, I know it's gonna work, but those first stages of the build out just completely against it. And also you delivered it, like you broke it down real easy. You made those videos for us to train on. And I think that also, played a good part on her like feeling confident and comfortable adopting ClickUp. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all about making it kind of digestible. And we went through the whole process from the beginning where we surveyed the team, we did design workshops together to figure out how we were going to structure this, all that stuff, and really giving her a chance to co-create this as well, because ultimately she's the one managing it day to day, right? Like you said, you're not as much in it as maybe you should be, but that's fine. But like that's where it was really important to make sure that she felt comfortable, because just like you sold it to her, she needs to sell it to the team to keep it up to date, because the system's only as good as the information in it, right?
100%. And we're still building on top of it, but we're definitely confident on what we have, and we've actually have experienced some growth, and not necessarily on the client side, but just on the team side. I mean, we have added a few more clients and the systems have been great, but just that day-to-day operation and just the onboarding of a new team member and just delegating some of the tasks that we already had SOPs for and all that good stuff, it's just been super easy, especially with the videos that you gave us on how to operate on ClickUp. We just bring someone on, we give them our kind of like our manual of operations, and then we added those videos that you gave us for ClickUp as part of that onboarding process, and it's been smooth. It's been really good.
Awesome. That's super great to hear. So I guess, yeah, you've seen improvements in the day-to-day, you've seen improvements on onboarding new employees. And then obviously I've heard feedback from your operations manager, how she's felt that it has definitely improved, even though initially we were unsure if it was going to. So I remember one of the first things you said to me after we'd finished the project, which I can remember vividly, was, you're like, I feel like we have the scaffolding now to grow the business bigger. Can you kind of expand and explain on what you meant by that?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to the analogy of having the right foundations. Like if I feel like by the time we connected and decided to enroll in this project together, our systems were already at capacity. Like we just didn't have that next level to build the next section of the building or whatnot.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so, yeah, you basically gave us the ability to build that scaffolding around our already existing small building, so to speak, and gave us the support, gave us the support and the knowledge, the guidance for us to be able to move in the right direction to grow. So that the scaffolding analogy, I feel like it's a good one, because imagine being 30 stories up in the air. Like you need to make sure that you have the right tools, the right setup. You don't want to be, because we're operating business. It's not like, oh, let's build this. Like, no, we got to sustain the operations and make the transition.
Right.
New project management. So we basically had to build that scaffolding around our building. We didn't know how to do that. You came in, structural engineer type, just, helped us have that solid foundation 30 stories up in the air so that we can be 30 more stories on top. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. I think about kind of how a lot of businesses are so good at marketing and sales. Like that's where their mode is. They're just like, we're just gonna keep bringing people in and, serving them, but then they don't worry about their operations and their project management, and then they get a lot of churn, right? So I think about that, where it's like you're 30 feet in the air and it's like a house of cards. It could fall down at any point, right? So you need to make sure that you're just as much as you're bringing new people in, you're also focusing on retaining those existing clients. And part of that is having a strong foundation for operations.
It's a must. Otherwise, I would retire if I had a.
You just had to deal with a bunch of churn. Yeah.
We're here. We're here to win it. We're here for the long term. And hopefully we're going to continue to work with you, man, for the long term.
Absolutely. So now we've got the solid foundation. It's been a couple months since we set the foundation up, and we've been working on some of those original automations we talked about, which was automating your proposal process and automating your client onboarding process. So kind of walk me through what both of those looked like before we started automating them today.
It was all very manual. And I was basically juggling both sales and client success. So a lot of it was falling behind. So I think that's speed to lead applies at all stages of the process, I think. So if I have a conversation with someone who's interested in working with me and it takes me a week instead of a day or two to give them, send them a proposal or just to keep the conversation going, then things tend to cool off. I've had that happen multiple times. And yeah, so it was adding stress to the operation because I couldn't switch. There was maybe a little bit of, there could have been more optimization on time management on my end, but then I had not done that from the beginning. Like I basically was setting up client success check-in calls at whatever time my clients were available, which made my calendars a mess. Like it was hard for me to kind of block times for sales, developing solutions, or just looking at the technical part of things. And that was definitely a hard lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So the automation of the summary of the sales calls that I've had with these clients and being able to just move that along the system through Make and put it on a already drafted out proposal on my Panda doc and just kind of have to cross the T's and dot the I's and then just send it. It's just super time saving. It optimizes the process. It gives me the trust that I am actually not missing anything because it gives clear summary. And because I would have to make time at the end of the day or on the weekend and recap my whole sales call. I would take notes, but like I'm the type of person that will get in the zone and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the recording and pull out my notes. But then that was delaying the sales process. And one thing I have experienced multiple times and like a lesson learned was you cannot sacrifice sales efforts because you're backed up on fulfillment, right? And that's where, like, a lot of people maybe they have a solid sales and marketing, but because they're not really putting the energy in fulfillment and retention, right? So to me, it was the opposite for like always has been like, okay, we have a client, we better keep this client. And thankfully we have a high retention rate, but then sales was suffering because you can't be doing both at the same time efficiently. So being able to automate the process and just working with you on, getting those summaries from all those calls and how accurate they are, it's really gonna help us grow at the rate that we need to grow now. We've been implementing it. I think it's awesome. In fact, I may just kind of repurpose some of these stuff for some of the checking calls as well for the actionables from that. And yeah, dude, it's been awesome. It's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, no, it's basically that context switching absolutely kills an agency owner. Like you're doing sales calls, you're doing fulfillment, you're doing this and that. And if you're involved in everything, like you get so, and then your weekends are just spent catching up and recapping what happened, right? So totally understand that.
Very time consuming. And I'm the type that likes to do everything. That's something that I'm working on. I'm learning to delegate and just to have these tools, it just gives me the confidence to delegate and, feel confident that my team will take it from where I leave it. And then they're going to do a good job. I'm not relying on them going through the call and picking up on the notes and none of that stuff, which I tried at one point and I very quickly was like, this is not going to work. Like my OCD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it, it was like, no, I have to do it. Nobody's going to do it like I do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense coming from you kind of with the structuring of the automations too, where you and I actually sat down, we built out flowcharts, right? Before we built anything, we took the time to design this and we designed it based off of your best practices. So now your team knows that if it comes with the automation, it's probably good, because you took the time to actually help me design it the way you wanted it, right? So I think there's something to be said there too.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why I was stoked and decided to go on that second project halfway through the first one is because I felt a good cultural fit or a good, like we seen eye to eye. And I just got to say it, man, like I feel like you have a very structured approach to your projects. I think that you pay a lot of attention to detail because I would have probably done it on a napkin and be like, this was to build. And you were like, we're going to take the time. We're going to have a call where it's going to be focused on this. You laid out a good flow chart. Then you shared that with me. We discussed it. We made sure that we were on the same page before we started building. And I actually took on a lot of that experience of working with you into like, I'm applying that with my team. Like in many cases, we would be on a meeting and we decided that we're going to take action a certain way or we're going to implement a certain strategy. And it's like, we need to put this on paper or we need to have a minute of this and just have a flow chart before we start just building stuff just to build stuff. And I guess it comes with becoming a more mature business, not just business owner, but a business as a whole, as a team. When you're trying to work at, 25, 30, 50 clients simultaneously, like at any given time, now you're playing a different league, my dude.
Yeah.
And having the proper systems and having proper procedures and having everybody being on board with the process, I think it's key. Otherwise, there's no way you can retain 30, 40, 50 clients at any given point. It's just that's where people, I think, get frustrated and throw the towel.
Yes.
I'm kind of happy that they do, because then there's more for us.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree on that structured approach, right? I think you have to build that within the team where you guys agree on how you're going to use a tool like ClickUp, right? Where it's not just everybody uses it however they want. They make tasks for random things. It doesn't make sense. I think it's very important you approach that more with structure. And then same with updating systems, right? Before you start adding custom fields or things like that, you need to actually take the time and see what, if we do this, is this going to break anything else? Because there's oftentimes in these project management systems and automations, especially, where you input, a number instead of text or something, and everything breaks. And then it's like, oh, well, this is not good,
And it happened at the beginning. I don't know if you remember when we started implementing, people were like, "Oh yeah, ClickUp's so cool," and then they started doing all the crazy stuff, even the operations manager. And we had to put a stop there. And it's like, hey, I know we're all excited, but
Yeah.
we need to think about what this implies. If we were to change or add anything, how is that going to affect the structure that was built out, that we put time into, thinking it out and building it out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think highlighting that it's important. So it's not just,
Sign up for ClickUp.
right, for ClickUp, wave a wand, just, buy the AI add-on for ClickUp. There has to be a structure and planning, and there has to be a strategy behind it so that you can execute efficiently.
So would it be safe to say before working with me, kind of how you approach, say, setting up teamwork in Notion was a little bit different, where you're building the plane while flying it, and as opposed to like this time we took a step back and designed it first, and then we built it?
Totally. I had an idea, but yeah, definitely we were building the plane on flight. Yeah. And, at a certain stage in your journey, you might be at that, like, that's what you have to do,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that stage, going through that season, is what gave me the lessons that helped me appreciate your approach and feel like I was in the right hands, because okay, this guy is not just trying to build a plane on flight. We're trying to first come up with a plan. Let's make the blueprint. Then we're going to start building the plane, and then we're going to Q&A it, and then we're going to put it on the air. So if it wasn't for my previous experience, I'll probably be all like, yeah, I want this now, and I'm paying you, and you're, which I'm sure you enough.
So I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
So I just want to put it out there for anybody who's listening to this or watching this, is there is a process for everything. And depending on which stage you're at in the journey of an entrepreneurship, you might be able to get away with one thing or another. I think that whenever you hit 10K plus, you really need to start organizing things. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck there. I'm sorry, but you're probably going to get frustrated and drop the button, just drop the towel. So understanding that things need to be done a certain way, it's very important after a certain stage.
Yeah. I think there's this kind of, YouTube business thing where out there it's like, oh, you need like time to value super fast, all this stuff. And because of that, a lot of people internalize that, right? And they say, okay, well, I just paid you. Like, why is my project management system not done in 48 hours? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Where there's this like timeline expectation. But meanwhile, the actual value of hiring someone like myself is the design. It's not getting the system at the end. Of course, that's the outcome, and you're going to want that to do the thing. It's going to be the practical part. But like, you can spin up ClickUp and have the outcome of having a project management system, but probably not a great one off the start, right? So I think that's where people need to realize like that upfront part is very important. If we're designing something completely custom to a business, that's the approach you have to take.
Well, and understand that it's time consuming. You got to allocate the right time for that, because it's like, if you rush through it, then you're probably going to miss out on certain things. And working with you allowed me to offload that time requirement to you. You are basically, I trusted that you were going to build, like, we would have the conversations. You would first really understand how we operate and what's the day in the life look like, and what is when a client comes in, and what is it when a client is already onboarded, and what is it when a client is 3 months in, and what is it when we add another service to a client. Like, you really asked all these questions, and then you went and took your time to build things, time that I would have had to take from sales or daily operations or team training, that would have set us back. So I think there's a lot of value in that. The fact that you know what you're doing, and the time that you allow me to have with my team and operations was just, quite honestly, that was one of the biggest, that was one of the biggest benefits of working with you. And that is that, okay, like, he gets it, and now he's going to create his thing, work his magic, and then come back. We'll review, and if we're all on the same page, then we execute. And I think that dynamic was proved to be very efficient because there was no there was a little bit of back and forth, but it was minimal, I think, compared to previous experiences I've had. So that methodical approach is definitely key. And you're right. The value that you bring is that you're taking on that planning and visualizing and creating this flow chart, and then you're also executing and building all that off.
Of course.
Another amount of time that you need to allocate to it, and whilst operating. And dude, I'm gonna be 39 in a few days, and I'm just tired to be working 15 days a day. Like,
yeah, that's fair. Okay, so then if someone was like, jumping through a bunch of project management systems, nothing's working, what would you say to them?
I would say take a look at the mirror, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, if you're in this to win it, then you need to understand that in some cases you need to find the right people for the right job. And if it's about building a project management solution, I would definitely say that they should keep you in the top 3 people to consider. If not, just don't even think it worked with you. Just, dude, get real with yourself. And if you decide to go the route of hiring someone to help you, if they were to hire you, they would be probably the best hands that I could recommend anybody.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, dude.
That really means a lot, because it's one thing to, jump from tool to tool. I've talked to so many business owners where they think like, okay, maybe if I go to Asana, maybe if I go to ClickUp, maybe if I try Airtable, like, it's like, I'm sorry, but like, that's not the problem. Like, we need to come in with some structure, right? And I think that's the difference, that, then it actually works for you.
Yeah, I think another thing to add on to it is like, you got to commit to something. You can't be jumping from one thing to the other, right? Like, just water your own grass, trust the process, and trust the person that you hired for that. And we have talked about this. I actually want us to come up with a new solution for my clients as chiropractors that we're not going to reveal the sauce in this conversation, but
yeah,
that's how much I trust your approach and methodology. Like, it's like, what you're doing. Confidently can tell anybody that they should consider working with you because you have proven your worth to me. And I know there was a lot of hands at one point in the project, and that was a little bit getting too crazy. But that was also proof that even when things got a little bit more difficult, we were able to handle the situation, or you were able to handle the situation swiftly, and we were able to come up with a good outcome that everybody was happy with. And I think that's also very important in a service provider. I see that a lot. I get a lot of feedback from my clients on that. It's like, hey, I really appreciate that you took the time to understand my situation and work with me and my team. And I think that goes, in your case, you also take the time to really understand and help people feel like you're in the right hands, and not just impose, but rather help people understand why things are being done the way they're being done, so that, because maybe people are not seeing the bigger picture. And that's what was happening at one point. We were not looking at the bigger picture. We were focused on like right now, but this is a problem now. Yeah, but it's going to be way better on different aspects that are more relevant to the bigger picture, which is growth and scaling, right? Like, if you want to scale with a small number of clients and high churn, then you might guess, we're aware.
Fair enough. That makes sense. So I guess one last question for you, Rafael. Anything else you want to share about the engagement working with me?
Well, we agreed on a certain number of questions, so I think we've had enough questions. No, actually, dude, the fact that we can just have a conversation, like, I feel like, we haven't really met other than through the screen. Dude, you're someone that I'm hoping that I can call a friend, and we at one point can sit down and, share a drink or coffee or something. And I think that hopefully speaks a lot about who you are to some people out there. I think you're a decent human being, to say the least.
Thanks. You too.
You're, an old guy. I think you're a smart guy. And if I was to add anything, it's that you're a very good service provider, like in the whole sense of the word, not just the product that you deliver, but also your communication and how you relate to people. I think that's important too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, Rafael, and we'll chat soon.